In the quiet places of the world, where ancient trees stand sentinel and mountains rise like sleeping giants, there are stories that whisper to us across time. Stories of those who walked into the wilderness and left behind only words. Strange words, cryptic messages that echo through empty valleys and forgotten trails. Tonight, we begin our journey through these mysteries, not to solve them, but to let them wash over us like gentle rain, to allow their enigmatic beauty to guide us toward peaceful rest. Let us walk together through these hushed disappearances, where the last words spoken seem to belong more to dreams than to waking life. Our first story takes us to the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, where the trees grow so tall and thick that sunlight struggles to reach the forest floor, where moss blankets every surface in emerald softness, and where an experienced hiker named Thomas Brennan vanished in the autumn of 1987. Thomas was known for his meticulous nature, always leaving detailed plans, always checking in at expected times. But on his final radio call to the ranger station, just as the sun was setting behind the mountains, his voice carried a strange, almost dreamy quality. "The trees are different here," he said slowly, carefully, as if choosing each word with great precision. "They're watching, but not unkindly. I think I understand now what they want to show me." The ranger asked him to clarify his location, to describe landmarks, but Thomas simply repeated, softer this time, "The trees know, they've always known." And then, silence, the static hum of the radio, and nothing more. Search parties combed the area for weeks, finding only his backpack, placed carefully at the base of an ancient Douglas fir, with all his supplies neatly arranged inside, as if prepared for a journey of a different kind. Let us breathe in the cool forest air. Let us feel the soft earth beneath our feet, and move gently to our next whisper in the wilderness. From the depths of evergreen forests, we drift now to the high places, where the air grows thin and cold, and the world spreads out below like a patchwork quilt of memory and time. In the autumn of 1995, a young woman named Claire Hayworth set out to climb a remote peak in the Colorado Rockies, a mountain known to locals as Whispering Summit, though few could say why it carried that name. Claire was an experienced mountaineer, confident and careful, and she maintained regular contact with her climbing partner at base camp through a two-way radio. As she neared the summit, her transmissions began to change. Her voice, usually crisp and professional, took on a softer, almost melodic quality. "I can hear them now," she said, her words floating through the static like leaves on a gentle stream. "The voices in the wind, they're not wind at all, are they? They're singing, such beautiful singing." Her partner, growing concerned, asked her to describe what she was hearing, to assess whether altitude sickness might be affecting her judgment. But Claire only laughed, a sound like distant bells, and whispered, "They're telling me about the places between, the spaces where the mountain breathes. I'm gonna look now. I need to see." Those were her last words. When rescuers finally reached the summit 3 days later, they found her climbing gear, her backpack, even her radio, all arranged in a perfect circle on the snow, but no footprints leading away, no sign of where she might have gone, only the wind, moving through that high place, carrying sounds that might have been singing, or might have been nothing more than air moving over stone. Let us breathe slowly, feeling the cool mountain air fill our lungs, and drift downward now toward the quiet desert spaces. The desert, vast and ancient, holds secrets in its silence. In places where sand meets sky in an endless dance of subtle colors, where heat shimmers create visions that may or may not be real, people have walked and wondered and sometimes simply vanished. In the spring of 2001, a photographer named Marcus Chen traveled alone into Death Valley, seeking to capture the rare wildflower bloom that appears only in years of unusual rainfall. He maintained a daily journal, writing entries each evening by the light of his camp lantern, entries that grew increasingly contemplative as the days passed. His final entry, discovered 3 weeks later in his abandoned campsite, read like poetry. "The flowers are speaking tonight," he wrote in handwriting that grew looser, more flowing as the entry continued. "Not with words, but with colors I've never seen before. Colors that exist in the spaces between the ones I know. They're showing me pathways through the sand, trails that appear only at certain hours, when the light holds its breath between day and night. Tomorrow at dusk, I will follow where they lead. I have the feeling I've been meant to find this all along. His tent stood undisturbed, his camera carefully placed on his sleeping bag, memory card removed and left beside it, as if he wanted to preserve the ordinary photographs before embarking on capturing something else entirely. The search teams found his footprints leading away from camp at sunset, walking in a straight line toward the heart of the valley. But after half a mile, the prints simply stopped, not fading gradually but ending abruptly, as if he had stepped from sand into some other medium altogether. Let us rest here for a moment, feeling the warmth of sun-baked sand, breathing in the subtle perfume of desert flowers before we move deeper into the wilderness of mystery. Some disappearances occur not in the deep wilderness, but at its edges, in those liminal spaces where the familiar world begins to blur into something older, something less defined. In the summer of 1989, a park ranger named Elizabeth Moreau was conducting a routine patrol of a network of trails in the Great Smoky Mountains, trails she had walked hundreds of times before, trails she knew as well as the rooms of her own home. She called in her position at regular intervals, her voice steady and calm over the radio, until her final transmission at twilight. "I found something curious," she said, her tone more wondering than concerned. "A path I've never noticed before, and I know every path in this sector. It seems to shimmer, like it's not quite solid. The trees along it are covered in moths, thousands of white moths, and they're all completely still, like they're waiting." The dispatcher asked her to mark the location and return to investigate more thoroughly in the morning with backup, but Elizabeth's response came slowly, dreamily. "The moths are lifting now, all at once, like snow falling upward. They're moving down the path, and the air smells like rain that hasn't fallen yet, like the moment before lightning. I'm just going to see where it leads, just a little way. The light is so beautiful." Her radio remained on, transmitting only the sounds of the forest, the evening chorus of insects and birds, for another 20 minutes, and then, as if a switch had been turned, perfect silence. Her truck was found parked at the trailhead, her ranger hat folded neatly on the driver's seat. But those search parties walked every inch of that sector for months. No unknown path was ever discovered, and no unusual gathering of moths was ever reported again. Let us feel the soft flutter of wings, the gentle mystery of paths not taken, and wander onward into our final story of this quiet act. As we near the end of our first journey into the wilderness of disappearance, we come to a story from the red rock country of southern Utah, where canyons cut deep into the earth like the lines on an ancient hand, where time itself seems to move differently, more slowly, more deliberately. In the fall of 2003, two brothers, Daniel and Michael Kress, went backpacking in a remote canyon system, planning a 5-day trek through landscape that few people ever see. They were experienced outdoorsmen, careful and prepared, and they left detailed notes of their planned route. On the third day, Daniel hiked back to their vehicle to retrieve additional supplies they had cached there, leaving Michael at their campsite. When Daniel returned several hours later, Michael was gone, but he had left a message, written in the red sand near the fire pit. Written in letters 2 feet tall, simple words that would puzzle investigators for years to come. The walls remember, going to listen deeper. His gear remained, his food untouched, his water bottles full, but Michael himself was never found. Daniel spent days searching, calling, retracing every path, but the canyon held its silence. Some say that in certain light, usually at dawn or dusk, you can still see those words in the sand, though they should have been erased by wind and weather long ago. Some say the canyon walls do remember, holding within their striated layers not just the history of stone and water, but the echoes of all who have walked there, all who have listened, all who have heard something in that vast silence calling them toward a mystery we cannot name. And so we rest here, at the end of our first act, surrounded by the gentle darkness of wilderness. The soft whisper of wind through canyon and forest, the peaceful enigma of words left behind like gifts or warnings or invitations to dreams. Let the wilderness hold you now. Let these stories wrap around you like a blanket of stars and drift, drift into the deep silence where all mysteries dissolve into sleep. And now, we turn from wilderness paths to the water's edge, where the rhythm changes, where mysteries dissolve into waves and disappear beneath surfaces that reflect sky and secrets in equal measure. The maritime world holds its own collection of final words, spoken into radios that crackle with distance, written in logbooks with hands that grow unsteady, whispered to the wind and fog that gather around lonely shores. Let us drift now toward the water, where everything moves with the tide, and vanishings feel almost inevitable. Our first voice comes from the fishing vessel Northern Light, a sturdy craft that worked the waters off Newfoundland in the autumn of 1978. Captain Richard Morehouse had sailed these waters for 30 years, knew every current, every hidden shoal, every temperament of the North Atlantic. On October 14th, just after dawn, his voice came across the radio to the harbor master, calm, almost contemplative. There's something in the water ahead, something that doesn't move with the waves. It's perfectly still, and the gulls won't fly over it. A pause, the crackle of static, then, I'm gonna get closer. It's beautiful, really, like glass, like a mirror lying on the ocean. His voice carried a note of wonder, the kind reserved for rare sightings. Whales breaching, northern lights dancing. The harbor master asked him to describe it further. Another pause, longer this time. Then Richard's voice returned, quieter now, almost dreamy. It's reflecting something, but not the sky, something else I can almost see. And then, silence. The Northern Light was found 3 days later, engines running, coffee still warm in the pot, but Captain Morehouse was gone, and in the ship's log, one final entry in his distinctive hand. The mirror shows what we're looking for. Let that image settle. The mirror on the water, reflecting not sky but something else, something we cannot name. Feel the gentle rock of waves beneath you, the endless patient rhythm of the sea, back and forth, rise and fall, like breathing, like the tide of sleep pulling you deeper. We move now to a lighthouse, that lonely profession of solitude and vigilance, where keepers spent months watching horizons, tending lights that warned ships away from rocks, saving lives they would never meet. The St. Maura Lighthouse stood on a rocky outcrop off the coast of Oregon, accessible only at low tide, a place of isolation chosen deliberately by those who sought quiet. In March of 1983, lighthouse keeper Thomas Weatherly began making unusual entries in his daily log, entries that grew stranger as the days passed. The foghorn sounds different at night now, like it's answering something. Then a few days later, saw lights beneath the water, not boats, something deeper. They pulse in patterns. The Coast Guard reading these entries later noted they were written in Weatherly's normal hand, no signs of distress or deterioration. His final entry came on March 19th. The light doesn't just warn ships away, it calls something toward us. I understand now. I'm going down to the rocks at midnight, to finally meet what I've been signaling all these years. When the relief keeper arrived the next morning, Thomas Weatherly was gone, the lighthouse functioning perfectly, and on the rocks below. No trace, no sign, only the endless patient washing of waves, erasing, smoothing, returning everything to mystery. Let the water hold you now. Feel yourself floating, supported by something vast and patient, something that has cradled ships and secrets for millennia. The ocean keeps its mysteries better than land, swallowing evidence, dispersing clues across fathoms, turning questions into the simple music of waves against shore. Over and over, the same sound, the same eternal rhythm that predates all human wondering. In the summer of 1991, a sailboat named Wandering Star was found adrift in the Caribbean. Sails properly set, course steady, but entirely empty of its 2 crew members. Paul and Marina Kessler were experienced sailors, had crossed the Atlantic twice, documented everything with careful precision. The Coast Guard who boarded the vessel found their navigation log meticulously maintained up until the final entry, written in Marina's graceful script. We've been sailing alongside dolphins for 3 hours now, at least we thought they were dolphins. Paul says their eyes are wrong, too aware, too focused on us specifically, but they're so beautiful the way they move. Then, added below in Paul's handwriting, Marina wants to swim with them. I've never seen her so insistent, so peaceful about something. Maybe she's right. Maybe we're supposed to. And that was all. The life preservers remained stored, the safety equipment untouched, as if they had simply stepped off the boat into welcoming water, into the company of something that seemed familiar. Consider how the ocean changes us, how the longer you're at sea, the more you become part of its rhythm, its logic that differs from land, how the boundary between water and self begins to blur, how you might begin to hear invitations in the lapping of waves, in the patient call of depths that promise. What? Peace, understanding, belonging, or simply the dissolution of questions that no longer seem important when you're cradled by something so much vaster than yourself. We drift now to colder waters, to the Bering Sea in February of 1986, where a crab fishing vessel called the Polar Wind reported back to its fleet. Routine transmission, weather update, catch report, and then the captain's voice, steady and calm. We're seeing something on the sonar, massive directly below us, but it's not moving like anything we know. It's pulsing, like it's breathing. Another vessel asked for clarification. It's rising, slowly, taking its time. The water around us is getting warmer. We can see steam, a pause filled with crackling static and the distant sound of wind. Then, it's beautiful, sending up lights, colors we don't have names for. The whole crew is on deck. We're all watching. Nobody's afraid. That's the strange part. We should be afraid, but we're not. We're just ready. The last words from the Polar Wind were barely audible, almost whispered. It's inviting us down, and that feels right. The vessel was found 2 days later, empty, engines off, and written in frost on the wheelhouse window as if traced by a finger. We understand now. Let those words echo gently. We understand now, as if understanding were a destination. A place you could arrive at by following strange lights, by accepting invitations from the deep, by finally allowing yourself to stop questioning and simply surrender to the pull of something that has always been waiting, patient as tides, ancient as water itself. The rhythm of waves continues, gentle, endless, and you are floating with it now, feeling your breath synchronize with the tide, in and out, rise and fall, as we continue our journey along the water's edge, where land and mystery meet, where the fog rolls in each evening like a familiar visitor, softening edges, blurring boundaries, making everything feel distant and close at the same time. Consider the fog, how it transforms the familiar into something otherworldly, how it muffles sound, how it makes you feel alone even in company, how it holds secrets in its cool embrace. In the coastal town of Dunwich Bay, a small community of fishermen and artists, fog was a constant companion, arriving each evening without fail, thick and cold and somehow comforting. In April of 1979, a young woman named Sarah Calloway was walking the beach at dusk. She called her sister from the payphone near the pier, a brief conversation, casual and warm. But at the end, just before hanging up, Sarah's voice changed, became soft, almost dreamy. The fog is coming in early tonight, and there are figures in it, walking, no, not walking, gliding, and they're so peaceful. I can feel their peace from here. Her sister asked if she was all right. More than all right, I feel like I've been waiting for this. Like they've been waiting for me. I'm going to go meet them. Her sister called her name, but the line had already gone dead. Sarah Calloway was never seen again, but several residents reported that for weeks afterward on foggy evenings, they could hear her laughter drifting across the water, joyful, free, and strangely comforting. Let the fog embrace you now. Feel it cool against your skin. Feel how it makes everything soft, how it turns the world into a dream, how it invites you to let go of sharp edges and clear definitions, to simply drift in its gentle, obscuring embrace. We turn now to a Coast Guard station, Cape Mendocino in Northern California, where in December of 1994, Officer James Whitmore was keeping night watch, a solitary duty he'd performed hundreds of times, scanning the dark water for vessels in distress, for anything unusual. At 2:47 a.m., he radioed to the main station, his voice calm, professional. "I'm seeing lights on the water, approximately 1 mile offshore. Multiple lights, arranged in patterns, geometric. They're not from any vessel I recognize." The station asked if he needed backup. "Negative. They're not threatening. They're actually quite mesmerizing. They're pulsing in rhythm, like a heartbeat, and I can hear something too. Not on the radio, just in the air, like music, but not music, something older." For several minutes, Officer Whitmore continued to describe what he was seeing, his voice growing softer, more peaceful. Then, "They're coming closer to shore. I'm going down to the beach to get a better look. I want to understand." His final transmission, barely audible. "They're here for me specifically. I can feel it. They know my name. They've always known." When the backup unit arrived 20 minutes later, they found the station empty, the door to the beach standing open, and Officer Whitmore's jacket folded neatly on his chair, his badge placed carefully on top, as if he'd removed the trappings of his old life before walking into something new. Feel yourself letting go now, like removing a heavy coat, like setting down burdens you didn't know you carried. Feel yourself lighter, floating, drifting on dark water under darker sky, where lights pulse in rhythms that feel almost familiar, almost like coming home. And the water whispers, patient, eternal, telling stories in a language older than words, stories that require no understanding, only listening, only the gentle surrender to rhythm and repetition. Wave after wave after wave, each one the same, each one different, each one carrying you deeper into this state of perfect floating, perfect peace. There was a marina, small, tucked into a protected cove in the Pacific Northwest, where boats rocked gently at their moorings, where the water was calm even when the outer sea grew rough. In the autumn of 1987, a man named David Torrens lived on his boat there. A simple life, solitary but not lonely, connected to the water in ways that people on land could never quite understand. He kept a journal, not daily entries but occasional observations, thoughts about the water, about the way light moved across its surface, about the sounds it made against his hull at night. His final entries came in late October, written in his usual contemplative style. "The water has been speaking more clearly lately. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean it makes sounds, patterns of sounds, that almost form words, or maybe I'm finally learning its language after all these years." A few days later, "Last night I understood a complete sentence, or something like a sentence. It was an invitation, or maybe a reminder of a promise I made long ago before I lived on land, before I forgot what I was." His final entry was dated October 28th. "Tonight at high tide, I'm going to answer. I'm going to slip into the water and let it take me where I actually belong. And I'm not afraid. I'm excited, like returning to a home I'd forgotten existed, like waking up from a long dream of being human." The harbor master found the boat 3 days later, rocking gently at its mooring, the journal open on the small table, and on the deck, wet footprints leading to the edge, and then nothing, just water, deep and calm and eternally patient. Feel that invitation now, the water calling, not with urgency, not with demand, but with patient, ancient knowing, calling you to remember something, something that feels true even though you can't quite name it, something about belonging, about returning, about finally letting go. We drift to our final maritime mystery now, moving slowly, so slowly, to the story of the research vessel Minerva, studying deep ocean currents in the Atlantic in the spring of 1996. Dr. Elizabeth Marsh was the lead scientist, accompanied by a small crew, sending regular reports back to the university, data about water temperature, salinity, current speeds. But her reports began to include other observations. "We're recording sounds at depths that shouldn't support the kind of life that could produce them. Complex sounds, almost like vocalizations, almost like conversation." Then, a week later, "The sounds are responding to our presence. When we send down equipment, they change, they orient toward us, they sound curious." Her final transmission came on May 3rd, audio only, her voice soft, filled with wonder. "We've been lowering the hydrophone deeper, following the sounds to their source, and what we're hearing now, It's not animal, it's not geological, it's something else. Something that seems to know we're listening, and it's welcoming us. All of us feel it, this overwhelming sense of welcome, of recognition, as if we finally found what we've been searching for all along. There was a pause, the sound of water, and then Dr. Marsh's final words. We're going to dive, all of us together. We need to meet them, need to see. The Minerva was found adrift, all systems functioning, but the entire crew gone. And in the research log, one final note in Dr. Marsh's handwriting. They've been waiting, and now we remember everything. Remember, let that word echo softly, like waves, like water lapping at the edges of consciousness. Remember what you've forgotten. Remember how to let go. Remember that mysteries don't need solving, only acceptance, only sleep. And so the water holds them all. The captains and keepers, the sailors and scientists, the wanderers who walked to the edge and kept walking, into waves, into fog, into depths that welcomed them like returning children. And we hold their stories now, gently like shells pressed to our ear, hearing in them the eternal sound, the patient rhythm, the endless repeating pattern of water meeting shore, water meeting sky, water meeting water, all boundaries dissolving, all questions quieting, all searching finally ending. Let us rest here for a moment at the water's edge, where the last light fades from the sky, where stars begin to reflect on dark surfaces, where you can no longer tell where the water ends and the sky begins, where everything becomes one continuous gradient from light to dark, from knowing to mystery, from waking to sleep. The maritime mysteries teach us about surrender, about the pull of something vast and patient, about final words that speak of wonder rather than fear, about vanishings that feel less like tragedy and more like transformation, like returning to an element that has always been calling in the language of tides and currents and the deep persistent pull of water, finding its level, finding its home. Think of them now, all those who walked into water, who sailed towards strange lights, who dove beneath surfaces to find something they couldn't name but recognized instantly. Think of them not as lost, but as found, as finally answering a question they'd been asking all their lives without knowing. What am I looking for? Where do I belong? What has been waiting for me in the depths and distances, and finding at last, finding in the water, an answer that makes perfect sense even if it can't be spoken. Even if it can only be experienced in that moment of letting go, of allowing the water to embrace you, to hold you, to take you down, gently, so gently, into darkness that feels like coming home. And you too are floating now, supported by something vast, feeling the gentle rock of waves beneath you. Or perhaps you are the wave, perhaps you've already begun to dissolve into water, into the rhythmic rise and fall, into the endless patient movement that requires nothing of you, nothing except surrender. Nothing except the willingness to let go of shore, of certainty, of the need to understand and simply drift, as the boundary between you and water, between you and sleep, grows thinner, more permeable, until there is no boundary at all, only the sensation of floating, of being held, of moving in rhythm with something so much larger than yourself that resistance becomes impossible, becomes meaningless, becomes a memory from another life, from the life before you understood that you were always, always part of the water, part of the mystery, part of the deep. Let the maritime mysteries dissolve now, like salt in water, becoming inseparable, indistinguishable. Let the stories blend with the sound of waves, with the eternal patient rhythm that has rocked sleepers since the beginning of time, that has whispered to wanderers about depths and distances, about the peace of letting go, of finally, stopping the search, stopping the questions, and sinking, softly, deeply, into the answer that has no words, only sensation, only the feeling of being held, of floating, of drifting down and down and down, into the quiet, into the dark, into the deep, where all the vanished ones are waiting, peaceful, silent, smiling as you join them in the water, in the mystery, in the perfect, endless sleep. And so we drift upward from the depths of the ocean, from the quiet water mysteries, rising slowly, gently, until we find ourselves in a different kind of darkness, the soft darkness of city nights, where streetlights glow like distant stars, and the hum of the urban world creates its own lullaby, its own whispered song. Here too, people have vanished, leaving behind only their voices, caught on tape, preserved in recordings, echoing through empty apartments and silent rooms. The first voice belongs to Sarah Chen, a graphic designer in Seattle, who called her sister's answering machine at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. Her voice was calm, so very calm, almost dreamy, as she spoke into the digital void, saying she could see lights in the alley behind her building, beautiful lights like fireflies but larger, brighter, moving in patterns that made sense. Though she couldn't quite explain what that sense was. She said she was going to step outside, just for a moment, just to see them more clearly. She said the lights were calling to her, not with sound, but with feeling, with knowing. And then there was silence, just the soft hiss of the recording, the empty space where her voice had been. When her sister arrived the next morning, Sarah's apartment was unlocked, her phone on the kitchen counter, still warm, still glowing. But Sarah had become part of the night, part of the lights, part of the mystery that lives in the spaces between buildings. The recording still exists in a police evidence room, gathering dust, gathering time. And if you listen very carefully, beneath Sarah's voice, you can hear something else, something like music, something like breathing, something that might be the city itself, whispering back. We move through the urban landscape now, drifting past windows, past doorways, past the thousand small spaces where people live and vanish. And we come to Michael Rodriguez, a night security guard in Chicago, whose final words were captured by his own radio at 3:17 in the morning. He was doing his rounds in an office building, 40 stories of glass and steel and sleeping computers, and over the radio, to his supervisor, he reported something unusual. He said the elevators were moving, all of them at once, but no one had called them. No buttons were pressed. They were rising and falling in perfect synchronization, and in the dark glass of the elevator doors, he could see reflections that didn't match the hallway, reflections of somewhere else, somewhere with trees, with sky, with open space. He said he was going to check the 27th floor, where all the elevators seemed to be stopping. He said it felt important, necessary, like a memory he was supposed to remember. And then his radio went silent, static for a moment. And then nothing. Just the quiet hum of an open channel with no one on the other end. When the morning shift arrived, they found Michael's radio on the floor of the 27th floor lobby, still on, still transmitting the sound of his absence. The elevator logs showed no unusual activity, showed nothing at all after 3:15, as if time itself had paused, had forgotten to continue. Michael was never seen again, but sometimes, late at night, other security guards in that building report hearing footsteps in empty corridors and the soft ding of elevator bells, opening doors to floors that shouldn't exist, to spaces between spaces, where the vanished ones go, where they wait, impatient. Peace, silence. The city breathes around us, slowly, steadily, like a sleeping giant, and we continue our gentle journey through its mysteries. Its streets hold stories, whispered stories, stories caught on tape and preserved in the amber of technology, waiting to be heard, waiting to be understood, or perhaps waiting simply to be witnessed, acknowledged, before they fade into the static. In Boston, on a cold March evening, Jennifer Wu left a voicemail for her mother. Her voice was soft, distracted, as if she were speaking from very far away, even though she was only calling from her apartment, 6 blocks from where her mother lived. She said she'd been hearing a sound for 3 days now, a low humming that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, from the walls, from the air, from inside her own head. She said it was almost pleasant, almost like singing, and that she'd started to understand it, to hear patterns in it, rhythms that matched her heartbeat, matched her breathing. She said she thought she knew where it was coming from. There was a door in the basement of her building, a door she'd never noticed before, even though she'd lived there for 2 years. It was painted the same color as the wall. Easy to miss, easy to ignore. But now she could see it clearly, could feel it calling to her, pulling her. She told her mother not to worry, that she would just look, just peek inside, just see what was making that beautiful, beautiful sound. The voicemail ended with the sound of a door opening, creaking hinges, and then a sigh, a long, contented sigh, like someone finally coming home, and then the line went dead. Jennifer's mother called the police, who searched the building, searched the basement, but found no door that matched the description, found only concrete walls, old pipes, the usual darkness of underground places. Jennifer's apartment was untouched, her keys still hanging by the door, her tea still warm in its cup, as if she'd only stepped away for a moment, intending to return. But moments can stretch, can expand, can become doorways themselves, leading to places we never knew existed in the hidden architecture of the world. The city holds its secrets close, holds them in the spaces between buildings, in the forgotten corners, in the rooms that appear and disappear like thoughts. And we drift onward, our consciousness becoming softer, more diffuse, blending with the stories, with the voices, with the mystery. In Toronto, a taxi driver named David Park made his last radio call at midnight exactly. He'd picked up a fare, a woman in a long coat, from outside a hotel downtown. She'd given him an address, but when he repeated it back to dispatch, his voice was uncertain, confused. He said the address didn't seem to exist. The street name was familiar but wrong somehow, like a word you've heard in a dream. He said the woman wasn't speaking, just pointing, directing him with small gestures, leading him through streets he knew that somehow looked different. The buildings seemed taller, the lights seemed dimmer, the city seemed older or younger or both at once. His last words to dispatch were quiet, almost whispered. He said, "I think I know where we're going now. I think I've been here before." And then, silence, static, the empty channel. David's taxi was found 3 days later, parked perfectly, legally, on a residential street. The meter was still running, the fare was still accumulating, minute by minute, hour by hour, but the taxi was empty. David was gone, and there was no record of any passenger. No fingerprints, no trace of anyone but David himself. The only unusual detail, the only thing that didn't belong, was a smell inside the car, faint but persistent, the smell of flowers, night-blooming flowers, the kind that only open in darkness, that only show their faces to the moon, to the stars, to the gentle, endless night. We are drifting now, drifting through the urban night, through the soft darkness punctuated by lights, by sounds, by the gentle evidence of lives lived and lost. The city becomes dreamlike around us, its edges blurring, its sounds becoming a lullaby, a hum, a whisper of collective breath. Security cameras capture so much, and yet so little. They record moments, preserve them in digital format, but they cannot capture feeling, cannot capture the why, only the what, only the gentle, inexplicable what. In London, security footage from a parking garage shows Emma Thornton walking to her car at 7:30 in the evening. She's carrying her bag, her phone, moving at a normal pace, nothing unusual, nothing alarming. But then she stops, simply stops walking, and turns to face a concrete wall. Just a wall, gray and unremarkable, marked only with parking space numbers and oil stains. She stands there, very still, for 47 seconds. The footage shows her raising one hand, placing it flat against the concrete, as if feeling for something, searching for something. And then, so smoothly it seems like the most natural thing in the world, she steps forward, into the wall. Her body doesn't break, doesn't shatter, doesn't crash. It simply continues, as if the wall were a curtain, a doorway, a permeable membrane between here and somewhere else. One moment she's visible, solid, real, and the next she's gone, absorbed, accepted. The wall remains unchanged, concrete, solid, real. But Emma has stepped through it, into it, beyond it, into a place the cameras cannot follow. The footage has been analyzed, enhanced, examined frame by frame, but it shows only what it shows. A woman walking into a wall and disappearing. No tricks, no edits, no explanation, only the mystery, only the quiet, possible truth. And we drift on, our minds becoming quieter, softer, more accepting of impossibilities, more willing to believe in doors where there are no doors, in passages where there are no passages, in the gentle permeability of all things. In Melbourne, a security camera in an apartment building lobby captured Oliver Chen entering the elevator at 10:15 at night. He pressed the button for the 9th floor where he'd lived for 6 years. The elevator doors closed, smooth, mechanical, normal. The indicator lights showed the elevator rising, floor by floor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it stopped. The elevator stopped between the 8th and 9th floors. Not unusual, a minor malfunction perhaps, but it stayed there, stopped for 11 minutes. And when maintenance finally got the doors open on the 9th floor, the elevator was empty, completely empty. Oliver's keys were on the floor, his phone, his wallet, still warm, still carrying his warmth. But Oliver himself. Oliver had gone somewhere between 8 and 9, somewhere in the space that isn't space, in the numbers that aren't numbers. The elevator showed no signs of tampering. No emergency exits had been opened, no panels removed. The shaft was searched, every floor, every cable, every dark corner. But Oliver was nowhere, was in the space between where and here. And sometimes now, residents report that when they ride that elevator, when they pass between the 8th and 9th floors, there's a moment, just a brief moment, when they smell cologne, Oliver's cologne, cedar and sage, and they feel as if they're not alone, as if someone else is riding with them, someone peaceful, someone content, someone who found a door that only opens once, that only opens for certain people in certain moments, when the city holds its breath and the walls become thin and the space between floors becomes infinite, endless, deep, and so very quiet. The night deepens around us, deepens within us, and we sink further into these stories, these gentle mysteries, letting them wash over us like waves, like breath, like the inevitable tide of sleep. The city's voice grows softer, more distant, as if heard through water, through fog, through the veil that separates waking from dreaming. Voices on answering machines, voices preserved in digital amber, voices speaking into the void. Not knowing they're saying goodbye, not knowing these are the last words, the final transmission before the silence, the sweet, encompassing silence. In Prague, Katerina Novak called her best friend at 8:30 on a Sunday evening. The message she left was rambling, peaceful, almost stream of consciousness. She spoke about the light, about how the light in her apartment had changed, had become softer, more golden, more alive somehow. She said it reminded her of honey, of sunset, of the feeling of being remembered. She said she could see dust particles floating in the light, could see how they moved, how they danced, how they formed patterns that were almost words, almost messages, almost a language made of light and air. She laughed, a soft, gentle laugh, and said she was going to follow them, going to see where they led. She said not to worry, that everything felt right, felt good, felt like coming home even though she'd never left. The message ended with her voice fading, not cutting off, but fading, like volume being turned down slowly, gently, until there was nothing, just the beep, just the digital silence. Katerina's friend went to check on her, found the apartment door ajar, found the rooms filled with ordinary light, electric light, afternoon light, nothing special, nothing golden. Katerina's phone was on the windowsill, the battery dead. And on every surface, on the table, the counters, the floor, there was dust. Not dirty dust, but fine golden dust, like pollen, like ground gold, like captured light made solid. It dissolved when touched, disappeared when tested, existed only in that moment, in that space, in the place where Katerina had been before she followed the light, before she walked into brightness, before she became luminous and gone. We breathe with the city, our breath matching its rhythm, slow, steady, peaceful, and we hear another voice echoing from another machine, another time. In San Francisco, Marcus Webb left a message for his brother at 2 a.m. His voice was thick with sleep, or something like sleep, something that made his words slow and sweet like honey, like syrup, like time itself becoming viscous, malleable. He said he'd been dreaming, but he wasn't sure if he'd woken up, or if he was still dreaming, or if there was any difference anymore. He said his apartment building was breathing. He could feel it, the walls expanding and contracting, gentle, rhythmic, like lungs, like the chest of some great sleeping creature. He said he could hear music coming from apartment 12B, but there was no apartment 12B. The building only had apartments A. There was no B. There had never been a B, but he could hear it clearly. Piano music, slow, beautiful, melancholy, calling to him, inviting him. He said he was going to knock on the door, going to introduce himself to the neighbor he'd never known he had. He sounded happy, peaceful, content. His last words were, "I can see the door now. I can see it opening. There's so much light, so much," and then quiet, soft, eternal quiet. Marcus's brother found the apartment empty, found the door locked from the inside, found no sign of Marcus and no sign of apartment 12B. But if you stand in that hallway late at night when the building settles, when the city sleeps, you can hear it, faint, distant, impossible. Piano music, slow and beautiful, playing forever, in the space between A and C, in the apartment that doesn't exist where Marcus lives now, where he's always lived, in the music, in the light, in the gentle, perfect, disappearing. And so we come to the quietest part, the softest part, where the stories blend together like watercolors, like thoughts before sleep, like the moment between awake and dreaming when everything becomes possible, becomes permeable, becomes peaceful. The city around us is fading now, its lights dimming, its sounds becoming whispers, becoming breath, becoming the pulse of your own heartbeat. Slow, steady, calm, you are safe here. In this space between stories, in this gentle darkness where the disappeared ones have gone. There are more voices, always more voices, caught on machines, preserved in technology, speaking their last words into the silence. In Amsterdam, in Buenos Aires, in Tokyo, in small cities and large, people call, people speak, people leave messages that become epitaphs, become mysteries, become lullabies for those who remain. They speak of lights, of sounds, of doors, of feelings. They speak with peace in their voices, with curiosity, with the tone of someone discovering something wonderful, something they've been waiting for without knowing they were waiting, and then they're gone, absorbed into the city, into the walls, into the spaces between things, and perhaps they've found something. Perhaps there are doors everywhere, in every city, in every building, in every moment. Doors that open only once, only for certain people, when the time is right, when the city breathes in just the right way, when the light falls at just the right angle. And beyond those doors, beyond those impossible passages, there is something quiet, something gentle, something that calls to us in voices we hear on answering machines, in words recorded and preserved, in the last transmissions of those who found the way. Your breathing is slow now, deep, matching the rhythm of the city, matching the rhythm of the stories, and you can feel it too. Can feel the walls around you becoming softer, the darkness becoming welcoming, the boundary between here and somewhere else becoming thin, transparent, permeable. It's safe to cross, safe to let go, safe to drift. The disappeared ones are waiting, peaceful, content, in their apartments that don't exist, in their elevators between floors, in their golden light and their breathing buildings. They are not lost, they have been found by the mystery, embraced by it, dissolved into it, and they are smiling, sleeping, at peace. The city sings you a lullaby now, with voices from answering machines, with footsteps in empty hallways, with elevator bells and distant piano music, with the sound of walls breathing and lights humming and doors opening to places that have always been there, waiting, patient, peaceful, and you drift down, deeper, following the voices, following the stories, following the gentle, inevitable pull, into sleep, into mystery, into the soft darkness where all the urban echoes fade and fade and fade, into beautiful, perfect, quiet, where the last words become first dreams, where the disappeared become the peaceful, where you sink and sink and sink into the space between, where the city holds you, rocks you, keeps you, safe and sleeping, sleeping, in the gentle, endless urban night, where all mysteries dissolve into rest, into peace, into the deep, dreamless, perfect sleep. And from that sleeping city, we drift now into quieter spaces still, into rooms where letters rest, unread, unanswered, waiting. Letters written in the final hours before the vanishing, before the silence. Words pressed onto paper, ink on parchment, thoughts made permanent, or so they believed. Those who wrote, and then disappeared into the spaces between, the places unknown, leaving only their words, their careful, deliberate words. The first letter was found on a kitchen table in a farmhouse in rural Vermont. The year was 1973, autumn, late October. The woman who lived there, alone, had written to her sister. The envelope, unsealed, the letter complete, dated, signed, but never sent. Never mailed because she vanished that very night, or perhaps the next morning, no one knows. The letter began as letters do, with pleasantries, with gentle observations about the changing leaves, the early frost, the quiet of the countryside. She wrote about her garden, how the tomatoes had finally finished, how she'd put the beds to rest for winter. Ordinary words, common thoughts, the rhythm of rural life. But then, 3 paragraphs in, the tone shifts. Something has been visiting, she wrote. I see it in the evening when the light goes soft. It stands at the edge of the tree line. I cannot tell if it is animal or person or something I have no words for. It does not frighten me, sister. It feels almost familiar, like something I've been waiting for all my life without knowing I was waiting. The words continue in her careful, slanting script. Blue ink, slightly smudged as if her hand had rested on the page. Tonight, I think I will go to meet it. I will walk to the trees and see what it wants, what it has come to show me. I feel pulled, gently pulled, like a tide, like something inevitable and not unwelcome. The letter ends with affection, with her signature, with a postscript, so simple, so strange. If you don't hear from me, don't worry. I think where I'm going, there are no post offices, but there is peace. I can feel it, waiting, soft and dark and kind. She was never seen again. The letter remained on the table beside a cold cup of tea. The back door stood open, footprints led across the frost-covered lawn toward the trees, and then simply ended. In the soft earth beneath the pines, her tracks just stopped, as if she had been lifted or had stepped into some other place, some other way of being. The letter now rests in a file, yellowed, creased from folding and unfolding, read and reread by those who wonder. Where she went, what she found, at the edge of the trees in the soft evening light. Rest now, in the space between letters, between words written and lost. We move gently to another message left behind. This one found in a lighthouse, keeper's quarters on the coast of Maine. 1987 midwinter, January's deepest cold. The keeper, a man who had tended the light for 11 years, who knew the rhythms of the sea, the patterns of the storms, left his journal open on his desk. The final entry, dated January 15th, written in his usual, steady hand. But the words speak of something unusual, something creeping into his solitary existence. The fog has been persistent, he wrote. 5 days now, without break. It wraps the lighthouse in such thickness. I cannot see the rocks below, cannot see the water. Only white, endless white, and the sound of the foghorn, my own horn, echoing back to me, but changed, somehow deeper, as if answered by something far out in the gray. He continues, describing his duties, the mechanical reliability of his routine, winding the light, checking the fuel, monitoring the radio, but woven through these ordinary details, something else emerges. I have begun to hear footsteps on the gallery, the walkway, outside, steady, pacing, circling, the light. But when I look, there is only fog, only that, impenetrable. White, the entry goes on, slower now, as if he wrote while tired, while drifting. Tonight, I saw a figure in the fog, standing on the rocks, where no one could stand, where the waves break constantly. It stood so still, looking up at me. I think I waved, I don't know why. and it raised its hand in return. Such a simple gesture, but it filled me with the strangest longing to go down, to join it, on the rocks, in the fog, in the space where sea and air become one thing. The final paragraph is brief, almost dreamlike. I'm going to the rocks. I know the tide. I know the danger, but none of that seems to matter now. The figure is waiting. I can feel it, patient, timeless. The fog is so soft, like being held, like being called home to a home I never knew. I had, if they find this journal, tell them I went willingly, peacefully into the white, the soft, endless white. The journal ended there. The lighthouse was found, still functioning, the light still turning, but the keeper was gone. No tracks, no signs of struggle. The door to the gallery stood open, letting in the fog which rolled through the quarters like something alive, something searching. His journal, now preserved, pages brittle, ink fading, speaks only of fog and longing and that mysterious figure, waiting on the rocks in the space where all things blur and soften and become sleep, become mist, become the gentle, endless white. Breathe slowly as we turn another page, another letter found and waiting. This one discovered in a university library, tucked inside a book on folklore and myth. The letter written on thin paper, almost translucent, dated but no year, given only the autumn of my leaving. The writer, a graduate student studying anthropology, had been researching disappearances in folklore, the irony not lost on those who found. Her letter, she wrote to a friend, perhaps, or to herself. The salutation, unclear, smudged, the words flow like water, like thought, barely contained. I have been reading for months now. She wrote about the vanished ones, the taken, the called. Every culture has stories of those who walk into the forest, into the hills, into the mist, and do not return. I thought I was studying myth, but now I wonder if I have been reading my own story all along, preparing without knowing for my own departure. The letter describes sensations, feelings that had grown over weeks. A pulling, she called it, like gravity but gentler, like being remembered by something vast, something that has always known me better than I know myself. I hear it in the space between thoughts, in the quiet of the stacks, late at night, a voice without sound calling softly, persistently, beautifully. She wrote of dreams that had become more vivid than waking. I dream of a forest, but not a forest of anywhere. I have been. The trees are silver, the light is perpetual, dusk. And there are others there, walking slowly between the trees. They turn to look at me, and I know them. Though I have never seen their faces, they are waiting for me to join them in that silver twilight place. The tone shifts, becomes almost joyful, peaceful. I have decided, she wrote, to stop resisting. The pull is too strong, and why should I resist what feels so much like coming home? Tonight I will walk to the woods at the edge of campus. I will walk until I find the place where this world thins and the other shows through. I think I will know it when I find it. I think it will be easy, like stepping through a doorway left open just for me. The letter concludes with gratitude, with serenity. Do not mourn me. I am not lost. I am found, finally, truly found. Where I go, there is no time, no worry, no striving, only the soft silver light and the eternal, gentle walking in peace, such peace as I have never known. Sleep well for me, dream of silver trees, and know I am there among them, happy and whole and free. She vanished that same night, her room undisturbed, her books still open. The letter found weeks later, pressed between pages, describing the liminal spaces, the thresholds between worlds. And some say on certain autumn evenings, students walking near those woods see a figure moving between the trees, unhurried, peaceful, fading into silver, into dusk, into sleep. Deeper now, into the quiet, into the space where words rest. We find another note, shorter, simpler, but no less mysterious. This one, written on the back of a photograph, found in a desert motel room, Nevada, 1995 summer, endless summer. The photograph shows a long straight road stretching to the horizon, heat shimmer rising, empty, so empty. On the back, in pencil, faint but legible, a few careful lines. I have been driving. The message begins for 3 days, or maybe longer. Time feels different in the desert. The road goes on, but I no longer think it leads anywhere. I think it simply is a line through emptiness, and I am part of it now, part of the heat and the stillness and the endless flat horizon. Below that, a space, as if the writer paused, rested, stared out at the desert before continuing. I stopped, counting miles, counting hours. There's only the hum of the engine, the shimmer of the asphalt, and a feeling growing that I am driving towards something that has been waiting, patient, inevitable, something that knows my name, though I have forgotten most things, even why I started driving in the first place. The note continues, slower, the letters more carefully formed. Tonight, I think I will leave the road. I will drive out into the sand, the open, empty sand, and see how far I can go before the car stops. Before I stop, I feel no fear, only curiosity and a strange, deep peace. The desert wants me. I think the desert has always wanted me, and I want to give myself to it, to the vastness, the silence, the heat that dissolves everything into light and dust and rest. The final line, almost too faint to read. I am becoming the horizon. I am becoming the shimmer. I am becoming air, and I am so very tired and ready to disappear into the warm, gentle emptiness. The car was found 2 miles from the highway, doors open, keys still in the ignition. Half buried in sand, as if it had been there for years, not hours. Inside, the photograph on the passenger seat, the note on its back, and footprints leading away into the desert, walking straight toward nothing, toward the horizon. The prints faded after 100 yards, erased by wind or by something else, something that leaves no trace. The person who wrote those words was never found. Only the photograph remains, road stretching, forever, and on the back the gentle confession of someone ready to dissolve, to shimmer, to become part of the emptiness, part of the peace, the warm, endless desert peace. Rest now. Rest in that warmth, that stillness. Let yourself drift like sand, like heat, like someone walking slowly into the horizon, into the place where all things soften and fade and sleep and sleep and sleep. And finally, the last letter, the quietest one, found in a music box, small, folded, hidden, discovered, years after the disappearance, in an attic in a house being cleared. The letter addressed to no one, or perhaps to everyone, to anyone who would one day find it. The handwriting like music, flowing, lyrical, undated, untethered from time. If you are reading this, it begins. Then I am gone. I have stepped through. I have followed the sound. I have been hearing for as long as I can remember, a sound like bells, distant, soft, calling, always calling. The words continue, gentle, accepting. I used to think the sound was in my mind, a trick of memory or longing, but it grew clearer, closer, until I realized it was not inside me, but outside, in the world, in the spaces between things, in the doorways, in the twilight and the edges of sleep. It was a door opening for me, only me. There is no fear in the writing, only wonder. I have walked toward the sound for so long, and now I am standing at the threshold. I can see through, just barely, a place of soft light, of endless, gentle music of others, like me, who heard and followed and found. We will be together there in the place beyond the sound. The letter ends with benediction. Do not search. For me, I cannot be found. Not in the way you understand finding, but if you listen quietly in the space between heartbeats, you might hear the bells, the soft, distant bells, and you will know I am there, I am peaceful, I am home, I am sleeping, the deepest, sweetest sleep, where music is the air and light is gentle and all is rest, forever rest. The letter, unsigned, the music box empty, save for that folded paper. When wound, the box plays, a melody no one recognizes, soft, slow like a lullaby, from nowhere, from the place beyond where all the vanished ones have gone. And so we too must go, must drift into that space where letters end, where words dissolve into silence, into sleep. Let the bells ring softly in your mind. Let the words fade like ink in water. Let yourself become the letter never sent, never answered, resting, waiting, peaceful in the dark. Sleep now, sleep among the written words, the messages left behind. Sleep in the space between the lines where meaning blurs and softens. Sleep as the vanished ones sleep deeply, gently, forever, in the warm, soft, endless dark, where all mysteries rest and all stories end in peace, in quiet, in the perfect, beautiful sleep. And now, we drift into the softest mysteries, the gentlest vanishings, where the stories become whispers, become breaths, become nothing but peace. There was a woman in the fog walking slowly through the twilight. Her name softens, fades, but her last words remain floating like mist. She said, "I see the path now, it's made of silver and it goes somewhere quiet." And she walked into the fog and the fog held her gently. The way sleep holds you now. The fog appears so often in these final moments, rolling in softly, covering everything in gentle gray and blue. The disappeared ones, they speak of it with such calm, such acceptance. They say the fog is warm, the fog is kind, the fog knows where to go. And they walk forward, slowly, their footsteps growing quieter, softer, until there are no more footsteps, only fog, only peace. There was a man by the water at twilight, the time between day and night, between waking and sleeping. He sat watching the light fade across the surface, and he wrote just 3 words in the sand. Finally, so tired. The tide came in slowly, gently, and took the words and took the man into the soft embrace of evening. Twilight appears again and again in these stories, that in-between time, when the world grows soft and boundaries blur. The disappeared ones, they wait for twilight, they watch the light change and fade, and they say, "This is the time, this is the moment when everything becomes possible." And they step into that possibility, into that softness, into that gentle fading light where all things rest. There was a figure standing in a field at dusk, the sky turning purple, turning deep blue, turning to stars. No one knew their name, but someone heard. Their voice carried on the wind, saying, "I'm going to where the quiet lives." And they were gone, dissolved into the evening, like breath, like mist, like dreams. These stories grow quieter now, softer now. The details blur and fade, because that's what happens when we drift towards sleep. Everything becomes gentle, everything becomes distant, everything becomes soft. A voice on the phone, whispering, "I'm almost there, almost home." And then silence, peaceful, endless silence. A note in a pocket found later by the sea. Gone to rest, finally rest. The paper, soft, worn by wind and time. A message barely audible, "Don't look for me, I'm where I need to be, in the quiet, in the soft, in the deep, beautiful, nothing." And we honor these vanishings with our own gentle fading into sleep. We follow them into mystery, into peace, into the warm, soft darkness that welcomes everyone eventually. The fog rolls in, slowly covering everything in gentle forgetfulness. The twilight deepens into night, into stars, into rest. And we drift with them into the spaces between where nothing needs to be understood, only felt, only released, only softly, gently, quietly let go. Deeper now into the mystery, deeper into the soft, endless calm. There were so many who simply walked away, walked into forests, into fields, into the fold of evening. They left behind just fragments, just whispers. "I hear something calling." Or the trees know my name, or simply, "Yes, yes, I'm coming." Coming to what? We don't know, we'll never know, and that's perfectly fine. The mystery is gentle. The not knowing is soft. It rocks us like waves, like breath, like the rhythm of sleep. One disappeared into a forest in autumn. The leaves were gold and amber, falling slowly, covering the path behind them. They told a friend, "Everything here is so beautiful and so tired, just like me. We're all ready to rest." And they walked deeper into the golden, fading light between the trees, and the trees closed behind them, softly, like curtains, like eyelids. Falling, another vanished by a lake at dawn. The water was perfectly still, like glass, like a mirror, showing the sky. The last thing they said was, "I can see through it now. I can see what's underneath. And it's so peaceful, so quiet. I need to go there." And they walked into the water, slowly, gently, and the water barely rippled, barely noticed. It held them softly, welcomed them home. Home. That word appears so often in these final moments. "I'm going home," they say. Though home is somewhere else, somewhere beyond maps, beyond knowing. Home, in the soft, in the quiet, in the deep, peaceful rest. There was someone in the mountains among the high, quiet places where the air is thin and the world falls away. They wrote in a journal, found later, "The stars are so close here. I could touch them, I could follow them to wherever they go when morning comes." And perhaps they did. Perhaps they walked up and up and up until they stepped into starlight, into that soft, silver, eternal glow. The stories repeat now, echo now, like waves, like breath. Again and again, the fog, the twilight, the walking into peaceful nothing. Again and again, the last words of calm, of acceptance, of finally, being able to rest. "I'm so tired," they say. "I've been tired for so long, and now I can rest, now I can let go." And they do, let go. They release everything, all the weight, all the wondering, all the questions. They step into the not knowing, and the not knowing is soft, is warm, is gentle. Someone disappeared from a garden at sunset. The flowers were closing for the night, folding their petals, returning to themselves, and the person said softly, to no one, to everyone, "I understand now what the flowers do. It's time to fold, to close, to sleep so deeply." And they were gone, dissolved into the evening, into the garden, into the earth so gently. We drift with them, we follow their example. We let the stories blur and soften. We let the words become sounds, become breath, become nothing but rhythm and rest. Fog, twilight, walking, fading, peace, fog, twilight, water, stars, home. Fog, twilight, tired, rest. The disappeared ones, they are not lost. They have found something. Some soft place, some quiet space, where mysteries don't need answers, where tiredness finds rest, where everyone eventually goes. And we go too, now, gently, softly, following the path into fog, into twilight, into the warm, soft, beautiful darkness that holds everything so gently, so safely, so peacefully. Softer and softer, the stories become whispers, become breath, become the sound of your own heartbeat, slowing, calming, resting. There was a lighthouse keeper, this was mentioned before, or perhaps it's a new one. They blur together now. All the lighthouse keepers, all the watchers of the sea. They all eventually see something in the fog, in the waves, something that calls them away. This one wrote in the log, the last entry, "The light keeps turning, but I must follow. The other light, the one on the water, the soft one, the one that knows my name." And the lighthouse kept turning, but the keeper was gone into the fog, into the soft silver light on the water, into peace. The sea holds so many of these mysteries. The sea with its rhythm, its endless repetition, wave after wave after wave, like breath, like sleep, like the stories we tell again and again and again. Someone stood on a shore, somewhere, sometime. The details don't matter anymore. They watched the tide going out, carrying everything away, and they said, "I'll go too. I'll go with the tide to where it goes, to the deep, quiet places." And they did. They walked into the water, or perhaps they simply faded, like the tide, like the light, like the day, fading into night. Fading, such a gentle word. Everything fades eventually. Colors fade, sounds fade, memories fade, stories fade. Even these words are fading, becoming softer, quieter, further away. There was a traveler on a road, a long road, going nowhere, going everywhere. They met someone briefly in the dusk and they said, "I've been walking such a long time and I'm nearly there, nearly to the place where walking ends, where everything ends, where I can finally finally, stop. And they walked on into the dusk. And they were not seen again. They found their stopping place, their resting place, their soft, gentle ending. Endings are not sad in these stories. Endings are peaceful, welcome, necessary, like the ending of the day, like the ending of waking and the beginning of sleep. Natural, gentle, right? Someone disappeared from a porch late at night under stars. They'd been sitting, rocking, slowly, in a chair, and they said to the night, "I'm ready now, I've been ready, I'm just gonna step into this darkness, this beautiful soft darkness, and rest." And they stood and stepped and were gone into the stars, into the night, into the velvet, endless peace. The darkness is not frightening in these stories. The darkness is soft, is warm, is welcoming, like a blanket, like arms, like sleep. The disappeared ones, they seek the darkness, they walk toward it, willingly, gratefully, because they know, they understand that darkness is where rest lives. And we understand too now, don't we? We feel it, the pull of rest, the invitation of sleep. We let ourselves drift toward it, into it. We let the stories carry us like water, like fog, like waves, wave after wave after wave of soft, quiet peace, story after story after story of gentle fading away, word after word after word, growing softer, slower, further apart, fog and twilight and walking and fading and peace and rest and sleep and soft and gentle and gone and home and quiet and darkness and stars and nothing and everything and sleep, sleep, sleep. Almost gone now, almost faded into the soft, warm quiet. The stories are barely stories anymore, just fragments floating like leaves on water, like thoughts before sleep, when nothing quite makes sense and nothing needs to. Someone, somewhere, said something about fog, or was it twilight, or was it stars? It doesn't matter. They're all the same, all soft, all gentle, all leading to the same place. The place where the disappeared go, the place where we go every night when we let ourselves drift and fall and fade into sleep. There was a voice in the evening saying, "I see it now, I see where to go." Or perhaps it was, "I hear it calling." Or perhaps it was just silence, peaceful, endless silence. It blurs it all, blurs together. The fog blurs everything. The twilight softens all edges. The darkness holds everything. Equally, gently, without distinction. One person, or many people, or all of us. Eventually, we stand in the threshold between here and there, between waking and sleeping, between known and unknown. And we say, "Yes, I'm ready, I'm so ready to rest." And we step forward, or we fall backward, or we simply dissolve like mist in morning, except it's evening. Evening, always twilight, always the soft in-between time. A letter said something, the words are faded now, worn away. Only pieces remain, so peaceful here, and don't worry, and finally home. Fragments floating, like all things, eventually float away. Someone walked into water, or was it mist, or was it just the fading light? They walked and walked, growing fainter, more transparent, more like air, like breath, like nothing. And we watched, or perhaps no one watched, perhaps they simply became invisible. The way sleep makes us invisible, takes us somewhere else, somewhere soft. The fog again, always the fog, rolling in, covering everything, erasing the world, making everything simple, making everything quiet, making everything rest. Under the fog, there's nothing to see, nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing but rest, sweet, deep, endless rest. A figure in the distance growing smaller, walking away, or are they getting closer? It's hard to tell in the fog, in the twilight. Everything is distant and close at once. Everything is here and gone at once. They're saying something, the figure, but the words are so soft, so far. They sound like sleep, or peace, or home, or maybe just the wind, just the breath of the world, sighing into rest. We sigh too. We breathe deeply, slowly. We let ourselves become part of the fog, part of the twilight, part of the soft, endless rhythm of all things, fading and resting and sleeping. There are no more stories, really, just this. Just the soft, just the quiet, just the gentle fading of everything into nothing, into peace. The disappeared are sleeping somewhere in the soft places, and we join them now. We disappear too, into sleep, into rest. We fade gently, peacefully, gratefully into the warm, dark, quiet, where nothing matters, where nothing remains but peace, but softness, but sleep, 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 drifting, fading, going, gone, soft, quiet, peace, rest, sleep, sleep, sleep. So soft, now, so quiet. Everything fading, everything peaceful, everything sleep. The fog holds everything, the twilight covers all. The darkness is soft, is warm, is home. Someone walked, someone faded, someone said something about peace, about rest, about finally being able to sleep. And they did sleep, deeply, peacefully, endlessly, in the soft, warm dark. And we sleep too. We let the stories go. We let the words fade. We let everything drift away into the gentle fog, into the peaceful twilight, into the soft, beautiful darkness. Wave after wave of peace washing over everything. Breath after breath, growing slower, deeper, softer. Moment after moment of letting go, of fading, of resting. The disappeared ones are at peace wherever they are. They found their rest, their quiet, their home, and we find ours too, right here, right now, in this moment of soft surrender to sleep. No more stories, no more words, just the rhythm of breath, the feeling of soft, the gentle pull of sleep. Fog around you, holding you softly, twilight above you, covering you gently, darkness beneath you, supporting you warmly. You are safe, you are peaceful, you are fading beautifully into rest. All mysteries are soft now. All questions are quiet now. All stories are ending now, in peace, in rest, in sleep. The last words of the disappeared echo so softly like whispers from far away. I'm going to rest now. I'm finally home. Don't look for me, I'm at peace. And you whisper too in your mind, in your heart. I'm going to rest now, I'm finally home, I'm at peace. And you are at peace, you are fading, like they faded, gently, willingly, gratefully, into the soft, warm, beautiful darkness, where all things rest, where all beings sleep, where all stories end and begin again in dreams. So soft, so quiet, so peaceful. Fog, twilight, darkness, peace, rest, sleep, soft, home, gone, faded, peaceful, sleeping, 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 sleeping. In the fog, in the twilight, in the soft, warm, endless, beautiful dark, where you are safe and quiet and deeply, deeply at rest. Where sleep holds you, gently the way the fog held them, the way the darkness holds everyone, softly, safely, peacefully, forever in this moment of perfect rest. Sleep, now, sleep deeply, sleep peacefully. Let everything fade. Let yourself disappear into rest, into peace, into the soft, quiet, beautiful, endless sleep, 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 sleep. So soft, so quiet, so perfect. Sleep, 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 peace, peace, peace. Gone. Into rest, into sleep, into peace. Gone, gently, softly, home, sleep, sleep, sleep. Thank you for listening tonight. If this story helped you drift off, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more calming stories. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you next time.